Yep.
All right. Go ahead.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. I would like to call this meeting of the Southbridge Redevelopment Authority to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, in the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southbridge Redevelopment Authority is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. This meeting is being broadcasted live on SCTV channel 192. And we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website and YouTube when we are able. A roll call vote is required for all votes taken under this order. I'll move on to agenda item number 2, the brief overview of the urban agenda and local rapid recovery program goals. I will pass the meeting over to Mr. Jeff Vassar of BSC Group.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. Again, I'm Jeff Vassar with the BSC Group, and joining me here this evening and we'll be presenting a little later is Heather Hamilton from the BSC Group. And the town was fortunate enough to get a grant from the state called an Urban Agenda Grant, and that's what is some of the work and findings from that have been funded from that grant are going to be presented tonight. And then in addition, the town was also fortunate to be receiving technical assistance from the state's Department of Housing and Community Development through what's called the Local Rapid Recovery Program, which is a program intended to help local businesses and property owners recover from some of the impacts resulting from COVID over the last year. So the second half of this presentation will talk about some of the initial findings from that process also, which we are also working on for the town. And then we're going to open up for comments and questions if anybody has any. So first of all, this is the second of 2 presentations regarding the town's Urban Agenda Grant. And I'm just, in the first presentation, we did a little deeper dive into what is covered under that grant. But for those of you who may have missed the first presentation, or as a reminder for those who did, just a very quick update that the Urban Agenda Grant is to help local communities bolster economic development within their community. There is some overlap with COVID and just because of things that have happened the last year. But a main part of the Urban Agenda Grant is to help educate the community about what the urban renewal plan and the urban renewal program can do for a community to help revitalize a designated neighborhood. The town of Southbridge has an urban renewal plan for the downtown area already. So this program was intended to kind of build off of some of the recent success of that program and set the stage for future actions over the next 10 to 20 years. So this is the second of 3 presentations, and we're going to give a quick update of what's happened over the last month since the last presentation. As for our project schedule for the Urban Agenda Grant, it started in April, and we made a presentation at the end of April, kind of a kickoff to what the project and the program is all about. In May, we continued to collect information and refine some of the actions that the Redevelopment Authority may wish to undertake moving forward with their urban renewal plan. We're at the end of the May now, making that presentation. In June, we will finalize what we call immediate, midterm, and long-term actions for the Redevelopment Authority. We will also make recommendations for a funding strategy to undertake those actions. And then we'll be back before the public one more time to make a presentation on the final recommendations. And final deliverable not only includes that public presentation, but also a handbook that will be given to the Redevelopment Authority to spell out actions and priorities and steps that they can take, again, to further the urban renewal program for the community. So again, just a reminder, Southbridge does have a redevelopment authority. It was established a number of years ago, and it is allowed to have 5 members. Currently, there are 4 members on the redevelopment authority as listed here. And there's 1 vacancy open right now. The redevelopment authority did prepare an urban renewal plan, which was approved in 2011. And so that is the plan we are looking at now and trying to build from and enhance to move forward. So as part of that original plan, as well as what's being looked at to move forward, urban renewal really is intended to help communities deal with economic challenges within their community, help stimulate economic activity and investment. And by doing so, it looks at key parcels and projects that are underperforming, as well as community actions that may help stimulate economic investment in the community. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see what we mean by those terms. It's really intended to attract investment, employers, and jobs within the community, and overall to improve the quality of life within the community, and also help bolster a sense of pride in the community, and in your case, not only a pride in Southbridge, but also a pride in your downtown, which has great bones. So what we talked about at the first meeting was the current urban renewal area and what is in the current plan. And since then, we've talked about, is there a need to expand the urban renewal area? And is there a need to look at additional actions that will be necessary to continue the economic revitalization and enhancement of downtown Southbridge? So on this map here that's shown on the right, it's a little hard to see, but this is the downtown area. I'll use my cursor, which hopefully people can see. This is Central Street running through the middle here, and this is Main Street running through the left side over here. Kind of wiggling through the site is the river, Quinnebog. Down to the bottom right is the Old American Optical Complex, and running up to the top of the slide is Hamilton Street. Within this slide, and I have a more detailed one I can show you in a minute, there's a red dashed line which shows the outline of the current urban renewal area. And then for the urban renewal area, we looked at a very large area bounded in blue. We looked at that over the last month to see if there was a need to expand the current urban renewal area, which is in red, to a larger part of the community. And after discussion and some back and forth on what made sense, the area in orange is what is being recommended as an expanded urban renewal area. And I'll do a more detail on this in a minute, but it's really intended to look at commercial areas, primarily along Main Street, Central Street, Hamilton Street to a certain extent, Foster Street to a certain extent, as well as open space improvements such as the bike trail, making use of the river as an asset for the community through improved access to the river and a river walk, and also the commercial corridor along Mechanic Street, which is an expansion of the current urban renewal area. So again, zooming in, hopefully people can see this red dash line a little better now, but this is the current urban renewal area. So in the center here, you have the Central Street parking lot. Down below that is the old train station, which is currently the Registry of Motor Vehicles. Moving up here is Hamilton Street. And then the urban renewal area went down to Foster and up Main, and basically captured some of the parcels up front on Hamilton, but really focused on the core of the downtown. And again, through some of the recent investigations under this current project, the Redevelopment Authority is considering expanding the urban renewal area to this orange line now. So it would go further up Hamilton Street. And part of the reasons for that is there are some vacant parcels along Hamilton Street. Hamilton Street carries a lot of vehicular traffic, and there may be further interest in some investment for commercial uses along Hamilton Street. Also, by extending further up in this area, it helps us capture the full length of the rail trail, as well as connecting a potential river walk along the Quinnebog River to the rail trail, so that it becomes an integrated open space network, where the prior red boundary didn't go far enough up to capture all that potential. Moving over to the right, the current plan ends along Foster Street, and the recommendation is to extend all the way over to Hamilton Street, again, for a number of reasons. One is there are a number of vacant commercial properties along Mechanic Street. There is the old church property and associated buildings that are currently vacant. And even though someone has purchased them and intends to invest in them, in case there is a need for the Redevelopment Authority to help with that, that large complex would be within the expanded area. There's an old factory here by I believe it's called the Dollar Tree, or one of the dollar stores, that's vacant. And then when we get over towards Main Street, as you move back behind some of the properties there, like the library, there was some vacant property that was used by electrical company or gas company previously, but it's currently vacant back in that area, which would be adjacent to the rail trail property. And then there's the former credit union on Main Street that is currently vacant. We have also potentially looking at expanding, including the current fire station, with the thought that if a new fire or public safety complex is built within town, the fire station may become an economic investment opportunity for the town also. What I want to make clear is that just because there is an expanded boundary shown as part of this project, it doesn't mean the boundary automatically gets expanded. If the Redevelopment Authority wishes to expand the boundary as a result of this study, they then need to go through a specific process to update the plan, show the expanded boundary, and get local approvals by the planning board, the Redevelopment Authority, and town council, and then go to the state for final approval. So there would be a process that the town would have to go to actually what's called do a major plan amendment. And at that point, the boundary may be looked at again and tweaked a little bit more. So within the current boundary, as well as any expanded boundary, it's intended to identify areas where actions would be proposed to be either undertaken or facilitated by the Redevelopment Authority to attract investment and economic activity within the area. Some of the recommendations that are in the plan now and would be expanded to the larger area would include acquisition of key parcels that may need to be rehabilitated, may need to be demolished if they are not in a condition where they can be rehabilitated for current use. There may be a need to assemble some smaller parcels into one or more larger parcels, which would become more marketable and which would attract more developer interest. There may be other things such as maybe some site contamination that needs to be cleaned up, etc. So there are some parcels within the current and larger area that are what we call underperforming economically. They're vacant, they're mostly vacant, or they're older buildings that have fallen into disrepair and the current property owners are not investing in them. And those are the types of parcels that the Redevelopment Authority would want to take some action on and bring them up to the standards that the community expects for their downtown area. Along with these parcels, there may be a need to upgrade infrastructure and roadways, sidewalks, etc., traffic improvements in the area. This is happening right now, as you know, along Main Street and downtown. There are infrastructure improvements. The Central Street parking lot was part of the original urban renewal plan, and that has been upgraded. And there are plans now to upgrade the roadway connections between Hamilton, La Rochelle, and Hook Street, improve traffic flow there and traffic safety. And there may be a need for those types of roadway and utility improvements in other areas of downtown within this larger boundary area. Streetscape enhancements not only deal with the roadways and the streets, but deal with pedestrian circulation, sidewalks, especially as we've learned over the last year, the ability of having nice sidewalks and wide sidewalks in areas where abutting businesses, restaurants, cafes can actually set up tables and displays in those streetscape areas really helps local businesses also. And furthermore, there may be desire to invest or improve certain public and open spaces within this area, such as the rail trail, which has been talked about for years, a river walk, which was proposed in the original plan, and other improvements, so that it's not just investing in commercial properties, it's investing in the whole downtown to make it a healthier place to live, to work, or to come for special events and things like that. So we're looking at future actions, and by future I mean the current plan has 10 more years of life to it, but if the redevelopment authority were to amend the plan, they could extend the life of the plan by another 10 years and make it a 20-year plan from the date it's amended, which could be this year or next year. And some of the actions that are in the plan now could be extended to the next 10 or 20 years, such as the rail trail or river walk. Some actions that are in the plan now, as well as actions that could be added, would extend into the future, primarily for the business improvements, such as building improvements at the street level, which make them more attractive for retail use. It could be facade improvements, signage improvements, maybe canopies over that first floor retail, and then taking actions to fill those first floor retail spaces with new businesses or expanding businesses that are in the area now. It's to fill the upper floors of buildings, which could be used for office and or residential uses. And there may be some areas that are just more appropriate for housing, maybe not commercial use. And all these things are going to be looked at over the next month as actions to be proposed in the urban renewal plan, either in its current boundary and or in an expanded boundary if that's to take place. There are also a number of other actions we've looked at and will be recommending to the redevelopment authority. We're calling these more like housekeeping actions. For example, as I mentioned earlier, there is a vacant seat on the redevelopment authority now. That is a seat that four of the seats are appointed locally, and then there's one seat that is appointed by the state, typically referred to as a governor appointee. And we've made recommendations that the redevelopment authority in the town look to the state to have that vacant seat filled. In addition, there's a permitting process that needs to be gone through. It's more of a regulatory process. It really doesn't change the plan at all. It's just putting what's called the state MEPA office on notice that Southbridge has an urban renewal plan. So it's called a MEPA environmental notification form, an ENF. And we're actually going to be just starting to work with the redevelopment authority now under this grant to prepare that ENF to submit to the state. So they've checked off that box. There's also been a desire to select a theme or slogan for the area, and that process has been started. And quite honestly, the redevelopment authority may have that now. I know there was talk about that in the last couple of meetings, and I'm not quite sure where that stands, but If someone has a question on that, I'm sure someone can answer that this evening. And in addition to these physical investments in downtown, also just activities that can draw people downtown to draw attention to some of the assets that the town has now, some of the recent investments into downtown. And if there are events, activities, bands playing, etc., flea markets, farmers markets, and people come down for these activities, they tend to also circulate around and may frequent some of the stores and other businesses downtown and bring them business. And also, in addition to undertaking actions to attract investment into the downtown area, whether to improve existing buildings, expand businesses, or build something new, the Redevelopment Authority and the town also want to work with existing property owners that may need a little extra help to help bring buildings up to code and invest in their current properties. And through an urban renewal plan, sometimes there are certain grant programs that the Redevelopment Authority can access that would provide, for example, low interest loans to property owners or business owners to help them improve their businesses and buildings. So it's a multifaceted approach to making improvements within an urban renewal area. Obviously, many of these actions cost money. Some of the actions on top we've already talked about. And what we're going to be giving the Redevelopment Authority are different sources of funding to undertake these actions. Certainly any federal or state grants we've talked about, we continue to monitor, and we'll give them a list of certain grants that are appropriate for certain actions that will be recommended within the plan. There is another program that's called District Improvement Financing that the state has authorized that communities can adopt for a specific area within their community. And it requires, it's a kind of a complicated program to explain. I'm just going to give a very quick overview, but it basically allows a community to capture additional property tax revenue within a certain district and use that additional property tax revenue to invest back into that district. It's a very simple explanation of it, but in the final report, there'll be a much fuller explanation of that program if the town would like to take that approach. There may be loans available to the Redevelopment Authority. Redevelopment authorities are authorized to borrow money to undertake actions. There are loans available through one or two state agencies that they may wish to apply for. And furthermore, the Redevelopment Authority may partner with the town to take out a loan, or typically it's called a bond, to fund some of the improvements in the area if that's desired by both. There's always local funding, and I know local funding is tight in many communities, and this doesn't happen very frequently, but sometimes local towns or municipalities do provide some small amount of funding to help jumpstart certain actions or provide the matching funds for larger grants. So we want to make sure that we put that on the table as a potential funding source. And then there may be partnerships. There could be partnerships with state agencies whose role is economic investment in the Commonwealth. There may be partnerships with developers, nonprofit organizations, property owners, etc. Basically, through an urban renewal plan, the Redevelopment Authority has the ability to partner with these different organizations and help, pool their money and their resources to help make something happen if it's for the betterment of the community. So all these options will be possible for the Redevelopment Authority. And I kind of explained this already, different partnerships through different organizations. The other thing that is important about this Urban Agenda Grant Program is that it is certainly for the betterment of the community in general, but knowing that some minority members of our communities don't have access to some resources as much as other portions of our communities. There really is an effort to help engage the Black and Latinx community members and other disfranchised residents to make sure everybody has an opportunity to invest in downtown, take advantage of these different programs, and help improve their property or start a new business or whatever it may be to help improve the downtown area in a way that's consistent with the plan that's being prepared, which will be an expansion of the current plan for the betterment of everybody in the community. Obviously, better living conditions, jobs, economic investment. It helps everybody within the community. So as I mentioned earlier, the town was also successful in getting technical assistance from the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. That's the DHCD logo you see here. And BSC Group was one of the firms selected by the state to provide technical assistance to various communities throughout the state. In total, there are 124 communities that are in this program. BSC is not working with all of them, even though we would like to, but we're working with a small number of communities. And fortunately, we were teamed up with Southbridge because the state realized that if we were able to help them with the Urban Agenda Grant and the local rapid recovery planning technical assistance, they'd get a bigger bang for their buck. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Hamilton, who is going to talk about what is involved with that local rapid recovery planning program, what has been done to date, and what we're looking to do in the future, including getting some input from people tonight. So Heather?
Great, thank you so much, Jeff. So my name is Heather Hamilton. I also work at BSC Group, and I'm going to talk about another specific program that we're assisting the town of Southbridge on, and that is LRRP, otherwise known as Local Rapid Recovery Planning. So I'll just briefly kind of give an overview of what this presentation will include, which is what LRRP is, the schedule and the deliverables, and also talk about the actions to date, which have been a business survey and a baseline data collection effort. And then we'll have a discussion. So let's get right into what the local rapid recovery program aims to do. At the local level, it is aiming to provide towns like Southbridge data that you can use in order to know what's going on in your community right now, how many businesses are there, how many vacancies are there, what's the average price per square foot for retail space, what is the breakdown of the types of businesses that you have in your community. And at the state level, what they're looking to do is really create a standardized process of gathering this data. So, so a standard process, and also to help inform themselves about what's going on in these towns that have applied. If you want to advance to the next slide. Thanks. So this is basically the same area that is being covered under the Urban Agenda program. So the map looks very similar, and there will be a lot of overlap between these two programs. So let's go through the different phases of this program. We've just completed phase 1, which was considered a diagnostic phase. That happened from April to May. And what it included was we literally went out to every community and collected a bunch of data. And when I say a bunch of data, it was as granular as taking a picture and evaluating every single storefront for the awning, the window transparency, just the overall look. It was the conditions of the roads, the sidewalks, the benches, And then also we went through a lot of data that the feds have collected on the types of businesses in your area so that we could get a holistic picture. We're now into phase 2, which part of phase 2 is this community presentation. And then we are starting to develop recommendations of actions that the town will be able to pursue. And all of this will be submitted in the final phase, which is mid-September. So this is just kind of an example of what an action might look like. So for example, outdoor dining. A lot of communities started to permit this last summer. And some communities, they did it an emergency, an action, but their bylaw doesn't actually allow for this. So the types of actions that we're helping communities like Southbridge come up with is how do you actually help these businesses start to address a lot of the things that we're seeing as a result of COVID. So what is it going to take to deliver this? Budget, time frame, resources, what are the risks associated with trying to develop this particular recommendation? How are you going to measure it? How do you know whether or not this is successful? And then what is the process to actually get you from this isn't in our bylaw to this is something that is in our bylaw? So many things were captured, as I mentioned, in phase 1: market information, physical environment, business environment, administrative capacity. And that's kind of on the town end, like staff support. So let's get into the numbers. One of the things that we did during phase 1 was survey businesses. Now we got 5 responses, which is on the lower end, but it's valuable data because we heard directly from business owners in this area about what's going on from their point of view. One of these was a retail entity. One of these was considered professional, scientific, technical, legal, and the majority fell into other. Now, from what I learned while doing this, other is a very broad category, but it is usually the salons, the barber shops, nail places. What we didn't get was any responses from restaurants, which I would be very intrigued to try to do this survey with them in mind, because I think that you guys have a number of those businesses, and the outdoor dining, for example, had a big role to play. So what we found was 100% of respondents said that they were affected by COVID. 60% of those respondents say that they are still operating under reduced hours. So this is just a survey of what they were reporting, decline in revenue, had to lay off employees, reduced operating hours, see the 100%, temporary closures. So these are the types of things that we're going to try to address with some of our recommendations. You can, oh, yes. So obstacles as reported by the businesses who were surveyed. I'll put a big asterisk to that because I think only one reported that there were other regulations that lead to obstacles. But from stakeholder interviews that we have been conducting since, we've heard a little bit more about this. And so that will be part of our overall report. Next slide. So these are part of what the businesses were asked to provide their feedback on. What would they like to see? What is the town currently doing well? So this is the physical environment, atmosphere and access. So you'll see a lot of people think it's very important to renovate the storefronts, building facades, improvements to safety and cleanliness, no surprise there. Less emphasis on improvements for bike users and public transit. And then everything else kind of falls in between. Improvements to streetscape and sidewalk is slight above. Next slide. So attraction and retention of customers and businesses, very similar. Jeff alluded to some of the programming that you guys have been rolling out with the musical performances and whatnot. A theme that I have heard over and over from stakeholders and business owners is that foot traffic is still really, really down. And so anything that gets foot traffic in the area really helps. And this also seems to be pretty correlated to the types of businesses that occupy the first floor retail and office space. If you don't have a lot of natural occurring foot traffic, you're going to get a lot of doctors' offices. If you have a lot of foot traffic, that's when you start to see some of the businesses that really help to energize, like restaurants and so forth. Next slide. So the numbers from our data, we concluded that you have 101 storefronts. And from MassDOT data, we were able to draw that you, up till 2020, you had 15,000 people going through Main Street on a daily basis. From our scoring efforts, there was grades given to window, display, signage, and then the public realm as well, sidewalk grade, trees, benches, lighting. So we will be able to package that and be able to provide recommendations on how to bump those numbers up. Next slide. So then we also cross-checked this with some online research that we were able to get our hands on. So according to other sources, you have 60 businesses. Now, that could be a difference of how they categorize. So we tried to capture everything. They may have only captured the streetscape and not necessarily, second floor. We were able to use property records and piece together how much total footage you had for retail and office space. Number of vacant storefronts is at 24. That is pretty high. I work in 4 communities, including Southbridge, and I believe that is the highest, although your area is sizable compared to some of the other study areas that we were given by other communities. And then the breakdown, the mix of types of businesses that you have, you're overwhelmingly almost 40% in that other services category, the nail salons, the lashes, barbershops. Then 21% is food and accommodation. 9% for both healthcare and social assistance, as well as finance and insurance, and then only 6% retail. Next slide. So this leads to the big question that I'm hoping we'll be able to generate here tonight is, in your wildest dreams, what would Southbridge look like? What would the physical environment look like? What would you like to see for businesses? And what do you think are the biggest constraints? So that is the end of this portion of the presentation, and I will leave you with those thoughts because I think we really do want to hear from you.
All right. So I believe that covers agenda items 3A, 3B, 3C, and 4A, B, and C. Would that be correct?
I'm looking, yes.
All righty. So I'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5. Any questions and comments? I'll open up to the Redevelopment Authority first. Does any member of the Redevelopment Authority have a question or a comment?
I got some comments, Rick Clements. I definitely like the data that Heather presented. That really, kind of gives us some ideas on where to go and what's out there and what people expect. I think another round of surveys would be great if we can really get more people to speak up and talk about it. I think that would really help the data as well. So thanks for getting that done in such a short notice. But I think to make it a vibrant downtown, we really need everybody pulling in the same direction.
Thank you, Rick. Is there another member of the Redevelopment Authority that would like any questions or comments?
Yes, excellent on that, Jeff and Heather. I agree with Rick. We have a long road ahead of us. It won't get there overnight, but plugging away, hopefully we'll definitely make some improvements along the ways.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Ms. Holly, do you have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say I thought it was a great presentation as well. And I'm really have been talking up the events to everybody I see. And in fact, if only I was tech savvy, I have a little clip of this Saturday's band that I had taken before pre-COVID. And I'm trying to get it up there and tell people that they'll be there. And it's I think the more we can get people downtown, I think the presentation is excellent. I think we just have to keep working it. We just have to keep doing it. We know what needs to be done. It's very good to see it all laid out like this. And I agree with Rick that more input is always good as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other attendees of this meeting that have any questions or comments? Councilor Marchetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. First of all, can you make that a little smaller so I can see everyone? Or did you want to keep that on the screen, the presentation?
Whoever's...
If you want to keep it on, that's okay. It's just it's hard for me to see anyone. The only thing I just had a couple of things. First of all, you were asking for suggestions. All right, there we go. You were asking for suggestions of what we think might help with economic development in town. One of the suggestions that I've heard from a lot of people is if we could just get one anchor store in this town, that would be very helpful. Something like a Walmart or a Lowe's or a Home Depot, something like that. I know there's no Lowe's around here. The closest one is, I think, in Ware. So that would be one area that I would like to see if we could concentrate on just getting one anchor store to Southbridge. That might help to bring other businesses to this community. The other thing that would go along with that is, has there ever been an open space study done in this town? If there is one, or if there isn't one, then I think that's something that we should consider doing, because whenever I say that, let's try and get one business to come to this town, everybody says the same thing. Where would they go? There's no place for them. But I don't know how they know that unless we do an open space study. Where could a store like that be located? I could, off the top of my head, I could name at least 3 places that I see driving around that I think would accommodate a large store, but an open space study would probably help a lot to identify, all right, here's where an anchor store could locate if we could get someone to come here. And that's the key, I think. Those are the 2 keys. Some place where they can locate, and getting somebody who's very good at marketing this town and get someone to come here and bring other businesses along with them. The other question I had was, were there anybody who took the survey? Did they tell you why they thought there was less foot traffic in town? Is it because of all the construction, or is there some other reason? And through the chair, whoever can answer that.
take a stab at that. I mean, I think most people were saying that it was COVID related. But I think Southbridge has had a problem with foot traffic even before COVID. I think that's why you've seen a lot of improvements to the central street parking area because they were trying to address, I think, something that has been an ongoing issue for a little while.
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mike. Go ahead.
No, okay. Well, I just have one last thing. I want you to keep in mind that changing the slogan for the area, the eye of the Commonwealth is on our town seal. So that's going to be a difficult one to try and sell to people if you try and change that in any way, because it is on our seal. So I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying, keep in mind that it is the eye of the Commonwealth is Southbridge. So that's all I have.
One of the signs that we currently have hanging up the center of at the Central Street pedestrian plaza, the slogan that we have hanging from the largest banner is the eye of the Commonwealth, eye to the future. So we've redevelopment authorities try to utilize the fact that we are indeed the eye of the Commonwealth to ensure that we touch base to our roots and our heyday while we continue to look forward. That was Miss Olivia, who I don't believe is here this evening. But Peg and Miss Olivia kind of headed that, so I'll give credit to those two in that regard. So don't worry, Counselor. We're going to make sure that the eye of the Commonwealth is still incorporated moving forward into any type of slogan that we do. I do have a question for you, Counselor Marchetti, to your suggestion regarding an anchor store. Do you have any recommended locations that you may have seen in the suggested urban renewal expansion area that may accommodate that?
Well, just driving around and see, look, I'm not the expert on open space, so I think a study should be done. But just looking around, when I drive down by, maybe it's not within the area, but we're talking about all of Southbridge, which would help the local area, the central core area. But if you drive down across the street from Fins and Tails, that whole area back in there, and I know a marijuana place is going in there, but that's a large area, which I think could accommodate an anchor store. You go the other direction, across the street from Lensdale Gate there, that is a huge swath of land there that could be utilized. And out by Big Y as well, across the street from Big Y, and there's an area of land there that I don't think it's ever been developed. Now, I know those three areas are probably not within your core, but to bring an anchor store here anywhere in Southbridge, I think would help the central core. But like I said, I'm not an expert on open space. I think a study is probably warranted. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just in response to Mr. Marchetti's discussion about the open store, I have to say I'm very opposed to a big box store coming to Southbridge. I don't think that's what Southbridge needs, really, especially where we're trying to bring walking business downtown. A big box store actually hurts the small businesses and draws people away from the downtown. So I think it's almost antithetical to what we're trying to accomplish here. If you have any studies to show that different, but that is my understanding that, the big box stores are great. They're up there in Sturbridge and you can go there, but I don't think another big box store is going to come and set up an individual property here. Like they usually go in one of those huge multiplex plazas, and we have that nearby. There's just not the population out here to support them to bring that out here. So needless to say, I just wanted to respond to our efforts here to draw businesses downtown, those business storefronts. We need to get the landlords to think about walking traffic instead of putting a driving school on the first floor storefront. you only learn to drive one time, and then you're gone. So, I mean, everybody and just the kids in town go there. I mean, it's not going to bring repeat business or anything like that. It's great that we have the banks, we have Zoe's. Those are all repeat, the post office that keeps bringing people downtown to do these errands. What we need probably is, especially for the people that live, I work downtown. I'll tell you, you could use another lunch place. You know, don't laugh at me, Andrew. I see you there.
I'm laughing because I agree. I agree.
But anyways, I'm done now. Now that you all know, I just think about food. I'll talk to you later.
To both Councilor Marquetti and Ms. Christo's point, I do agree with Ms. Christo in the sense of a big box store in an outside location can reduce foot traffic. However, I do agree with an anchor nameplate in town, maybe utilizing like a Texas Roadhouse or some sort of well-known restaurant that doesn't necessarily already have a demographic here. We don't need another pizza joint. We have a very competitive pizza market here in town between the 5 pizza places we have located throughout Southbridge and next door in Sturbridge. So I do agree that a big name and maybe the corner storefront on Hamilton and Main as a restaurant would definitely draw a lot more foot traffic and allow for more retail opportunities in the center of town. Like
Well,
you said,
now that the cinema has closed, is there any way that we can get somebody to take a look at any of the locations downtown for maybe a small street house or art house cinema? Would be great. I know it brought tremendous walking traffic to Millbury when the Millbury Draft House is. And if the Millbury Draft House would just invest in decent seat cushions, they'd probably still be doing better. But anyways, stop laughing at me, Andrew. So anyways, but yeah, a little cinema or something that brings people downtown, a restaurant, a cinema, even a music lounge, an evening coffee shop. We have coffee shops that close at 3 p.m. A coffee shop where you just want to sit and visit and talk about the day would be a great thing to have. A Wi-Fi cafe with coffee, I think would be great. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Marquetti?
if I could just respond quickly. I didn't mean to drive any businesses out of town. It's just that I think an anchor store, well, first of all, you'd be employing more people. Second of all, a lot of people would be coming to the town to go shopping at that store. And when they come to town, they may hit some of these other businesses. That's the only thing that I was thinking of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Marquetti. Mr. Eric?
Hi, all. Thank you. If I may, just maybe I can start to address Councilor Marchetti's question regarding the big box retail. So I've looked into several medium to large, box retailers, such as in Aldi and a few other places. And looking at it, what they function basically is on traffic and population. And so Aldi, which is a small sort of a discount, generic grocery store, maybe I shop there, so I'd say a poor man's Trader Joe's, but it's not really. It's just, they just offer generic food. It's the same stuff that, it's like Lucky Charms, but it's not Lucky Charms, you know what I mean? But their traffic counts they look for between 20 and 30,000. Sometimes they go as low as 18,000. Now we have a study that shows that on a typical year through Main Street, we're looking at maybe 14 to 15,000 cars per day. So we're under what most of these big box retailers look for. The other thing that really is unfortunate, and it's a hindrance to the town, is we do not have any direct highway access. Most big box retailers, they look for on the highway, off the highway. You know, look at the location of the Walmart and things like that in Sturbridge, right on Route 20, right, you know, smack dab between, you know, two highways with 90 and 84. You know, those are the kind of places that unfortunately big box retail looks for. The other thing is that currently big box retailers are not generally expanding. You know, maybe some of the restaurants, and we could get some restaurants, and we're working on that. You know, they may be expanding at this point in time through franchisees, but you know, your Lowe's, Home Depot, you know, Barnes and Noble, all those kind of stores, they're not expanding right now. They're kind of holding tight with the stores they have open, or they're closing stores. So I don't think that we're going to get big box retail. So I think a better approach right now is to try to draw smaller businesses, especially to our downtown, and to work with our landlords to try to get them to do the necessary upgrades to attract businesses rather than churches and residences.
Also, a thing that brings people is theater productions. I think the town should work more proactively with the gateway players to promote the theater that they have been working so hard on for so many years, and work with them to give them access, perhaps even just there's a stage at the old high school, there's stages at the new high school, there's a stage in the town hall. I think that we should be able to work with them to give them, when things open up, but to be able to help them with a venue so that they can produce their productions. But because that brings people out in the evening. It might just bring residents at first, but if you bring in more people or more production, that helps the theater to grow, and that brings people to town, brings people out for dinner and a nice night out.
I think some sort of like Shakespeare in the Park event, much to your point.
Yes.
Shakespeare in the parking lot. We can do it on the pedestrian plaza and do a medley. I agree. This town has always had a heritage of not sticking to the norm. We've always done trades, and we've always been artsy, and that's the way this town's, that's what this town's heritage is in. So I do think, looking forward as far as economic and cultural development, looking to the central heritage of this town is what's going to make this town successful. We can still be known for the things we were known for, and I think capitalizing on our history moving forward, again, eye of the Commonwealth and the eye to the future, is kind of a two kind of wordplay, because we acknowledge our history and we still want to build on it, but we have to move forward and we have to look at it. So very good points this evening. I got to thank Mr. Jeff and Miss Heather with BSC Group. I've got to commend you. When we first were proposed this grant, I think to the end of last year, beginning of this year, you guys have exceeded by far expectations and what I expected as far as help. And I think everyone in town and everyone in the Redevelopment Authority greatly appreciates it, because this is going to be a huge stepping stone for this town. Once you guys are gone, the whole point is we can pick up and continue to run this relay moving forward with what you guys present. And you've put in a tremendous amount of effort, especially during the circumstances, to be able to gather all of this information and create these very intricate plans and designs moving forward, and with a wealth of knowledge and resource. To both of you, have you guys had an opportunity to potentially reach out to the Southbridge Business Partnership to link up with some of the businesses that are in the central core of town to try to get some of these responses?
So thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the compliment. We appreciate it. And yes, I know Rick and others mentioned that the survey results were low, to be quite frank, but we have been doing outreach to what we call stakeholders, business owners, property owners. Heather has talked to some, Heather and I have talked to some, and Heather has reached out to the Business Association. I can let her speak because we have a call set up to talk to the head of the business association, I believe, so that we can then talk to their membership after we get some direction. Well, I'll let Heather give a better description of that than I just did.
Well, not much to add, just that we do have a very important call scheduled tomorrow morning. And so we hope to report more information next week.
Awesome. Let me see here. I had it. Sorry, I'm on my phone. I'm trying to flip through slides here. I might be a millennial, but I am not technologically proficient. So bear with me here. Because there was a question I had. Oh my goodness. Technology is supposed to make things convenient. When you gathered your data in regards to the amount of storefronts in the study area, there was 101. I don't remember. I may have missed it. If there was, did you guys obtain a number of vacant storefronts within those 101 that were in the area?
Yes, 24, which is a sizable number. I mean, you guys have a pretty sizable study area compared to some of the other communities that only did maybe 1 or 2 blocks. But 24 is exceptionally high. And I took pictures of pretty much every single vacant storefront. So we know exactly where they are. We plotted them on a GIS map. So that will definitely be part of the suite of action items that we're going to try to come up with some recommendations for you folks.
All righty. I think that was my only question.
Peg
I see.
is trying to
Of
jump.
course, now I found the slide 2 seconds after you answered the question for me. Yeah, number of vacant storefronts. Okay. Technology. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Miss Peg.
Just quickly with the data. So I saw the 100 storefronts, and then can you explain again what the 60 storefronts was? You said the difference was between the MassDOT and the other storefronts?
So there's this thing called NAICS data. It's North American Industry Classification System that the feds do. And according to Esri, I don't know if you know that term, but basically it's a mapping software tool that we purchased data to help us validate our own data collection that we did on the ground. And according to their data, you had 60 storefronts in that area. Now, I can't remember if that was prior to 2019. I want to say that data might have been older than our data, but it's really hard to know how they defined their businesses, and they code in a very structured way, whereas we coded, there's something there, so we tried to capture it, but they don't necessarily capture every single type of business. So that's probably what the disparity was about.
Thank you.
All right. So, I am so glad that we are getting to the end of remote meetings, because I think this is the most I have ever struggled with PowerPoints in my life and PDF files. So, our next scheduled meeting date, there we go, would be next Thursday at 6:30.
June 3rd.
All right. And 6:30 works for everybody?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
All righty. So before I call for the motion to adjourn, does anybody else have any comments?
I just wanted to, sorry, Ben.
You go first, Ben.
All right.
I was just going to ask if I could just let everyone know that on June 7th, the town council will be reviewing the 2 agenda items related to your immediate action items for the appraisal and for the environmental notification form, if anyone's interested in supporting that. And also on June 3rd at 3:45, we'll be meeting at McCann Field with anyone interested in looking at the field for potential park grant application ideas. And we welcome all input from the community. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I'm very grateful for the opportunity, as Jeff is, to work with you guys. Southbridge has really stolen my heart. I see so much potential.
We appreciate you guys. All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? And Holly seconds. Roll call vote. Holly Christo. Is a yay. Rick Clements.
Yes.
And Arthur Martin.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for your hard work. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
This conference is no longer being recorded.